Okay.
Welcome back to the Repro Review Show, where we talk about imported and rom-hack games that you can only find on reproduction cartridges. I'm your host, Doug, and today we're talking about a hack of Donkey Kong Country called Kremling's Revenge. The year was 1994, and the game developer Rare brought one of the most famous Nintendo icons back in the spotlight in a newly imagined way. For the first time since the arcade days, the famous ape Donkey Kong was given a game of his own. And no one was more excited than an 8-year-old Douglas. The graphics were unlike anything else the 16-bit market had ever seen. Rather than regular sprite work, they used pre-rendered 3D models, which was a huge leap visually from games like Super Mario World and A Link to the Past. These technical feats brought the Super Nintendo a second wind in its popularity. Donkey Kong Country is now considered a classic from the SNES library, and spawned 2 sequels on the system which are equally revered. Despite its popularity, there are very few ROM hacks that can be found on reproduction cartridges. This means that Donkey Kong must be a tough game to hack. So even having a game that isn't broken or incomplete is uncommon. So I was pleased to find Kremling's Revenge available online at a few repro shops. Due to Donkey Kong Country being much harder to hack, most of the traditional visual elements remain intact. Where Mario hacks can have customized sprites, overworlds, and bosses, this is not the case here. The overworlds are the same, including the names of each level, and they're in the same order. But there are no variations in sprite design, and the boss battles remain unaltered. Same intro, same save screen, and David Wise's brilliant soundtrack remains completely intact. At first glance, it looks exactly like the first Donkey Kong Country. And that's fine. Once you accept that the changes are limited, and that it's just a shift in the level layouts, you can judge this hack based on its level design. Works for me. I appreciate that I can experience something so familiar in a new way. Besides, the visual presentation of Donkey Kong Country is gorgeous, and one of the aspects of the game that really holds up to this day. Just like the original game, the handling is intuitive and smooth. Donkey Kong is large and powerful, where Diddy Kong is quick and agile. One of the things of note is that there are no underwater levels. See? That's it. This isn't due to the programmer's disdain for water levels apparently, but rather a limitation in the software for making the hacks. So hey, if you hate these levels, that's good news for you. For me though, I actually miss the underwater levels, and that means there's no chance to use On Guard the swordfish. But anyway, even though Kremling's Revenge looks and sounds like Donkey Kong Country, it actually feels very different. There's a certain rhythm to Donkey Kong games that makes them so accessible. It's the epitome of a well-polished 16-bit platformer. There is a challenge, but never from the controls or the handling. You can overcome obstacles with perseverance, good timing, and concentration. It never feels like levels are unfair or cheap, except a snow level or two. Like seriously, how am I supposed to see anything through this? Kremling's Revenge doesn't have the same rhythm and intuitiveness. Items are not placed with the same deliberate, logical placement. Your trained DK intuition may not serve you so well here. There's also a strange inconsistency and challenge here. There's no logical difficulty curve. Some levels are hard, some levels are not, and what order they're in seems kinda random. Try and be prepared. The creators of this hack will trick you and try and force you to take more than a few leaps of faith. You will die. A lot. When I conceived of this show, I planned to never do those really difficult hacks like those Kaizo Mario ones, because to me anyway, those just aren't fun. But also the plan was to play these games like you would have back in the day, with a cartridge on the original hardware. If you need save states to play a game, it's not really worth my time. Kremling's Revenge is not that bad, not nearly, but it does highlight my problem with those games. harder does not mean more fun. And admittedly, designing a game that has ample but fair challenges is not easy. Professional game designers have a tough time walking that line too.
And how you can tell the difference is that when you beat a well-balanced, challenging level, your reaction is like this. Yeah! Where if the challenge seems unfair and you still manage to beat a level, it's more like this. And unfortunately, about half the time, Kremling's Revenge falls in the second category.
You should never leave a hard level in a game never wanting to play it again. There should always be a level of delight upon completion. Otherwise, what's this even all about?
So the problem I've fallen into is that I fully understand that rom-hack games, they're not developed by professional developers. They are made by fellow hardcore fans. So when a fellow fan works really hard on something, the last thing you want to do is badmouth their work. It is, after all, a love letter to the original game, and I went into this game with the highest of hopes, ready to love what the fans had to contribute to Donkey Kong Country. But the purpose of this show is that it's a review show to show you which of these hacks are worth your time, or potentially your money. So I have to go with my gut and be completely honest with you. I didn't like it. And here's why.
There is way too much of that. It's infuriating. I spent whole evenings trying to power through some of the levels, and there's only so many times you can fail at a level before it's no longer fun and much more of a chore. But it's not always like that. That's the frustrating part, because some of the levels are actually really well designed and a lot of fun. The Minecart Carnage level is just as good as the Donkey Kong Country original. This just shows you that someone involved in this knew what they were doing, but also shows that the hack had more potential than what we have here. Kremling's Revenge is also at its best when it defies expectations and combines ideas that didn't pair up in the original game, and makes unique levels out of them. Like in Orangutan Gang and Stop and Go Station, which they also turned into minecart levels. It was so much fun seeing these elements mix, rolling in a minecart, jumping from treetop to treetop. Great outside the box thinking. And challenging, but not so hard that I was pulling my hair out. And just thinking about it, I want to play that level again. That's how I should feel all the time. That is how the original game made me feel. But the moments where the hack shines don't offset the really frustrating levels. There was a number of levels where I was ready to call it quits. Millstone Mayhem was the first, and actually the first 4 levels of Vine Valley. Snow Barrel Blast was also super hard, but it was at least fun for using the animal buddies in interesting ways. Like I said, thinking outside the box goes a long way. Oh, what? They can't make the crystal levels either? That sucks. The real outlier of this whole game is Winky's Walkway, which was just disappointing because of how easy and uncreative it was. Just jumping and killing enemies. Just seems like they really called it in for this one.
It doesn't help that I wasn't playing this game under the best of circumstances either. My cartridge had a faulty battery save, so every time I played, my progress was lost. I actually have done a single sitting playthrough through Donkey Kong Country before. It took me about 3 hours, but having to go through this one without being able to power down the SNES, that was not easy on me, physically or spiritually.
A few of these levels were torture and cost me life after life. For the sake of recording the footage, as well as playing enough of the game that I felt I could give a fair review, I played until I couldn't take it anymore. It was late and I was tired, and I beat every level I got stuck on previously, but after hitting Ice Age Alley and seeing what the level had in store for me, I just couldn't.
So no, I haven't finished the game, but I'm gonna guess that you beat it by fighting King K. Rool?
But that also highlights the problem. After this review, I will probably never play this game again because I don't want to. I only kept coming back to do it for this review, and that's a bad sign. So really, this game is probably fine if you play it in a way where you use save states. It's probably not that hard if you do that. But again, I played these games as they would have been played 20 plus years ago, and I judge them as that. If you need save states to beat a game, it's bad game design as far as I'm concerned. Also, it may be of note that I played the remodel version, which apparently scales back the difficulty a little bit. Apparently in the final world it originally got like a Kaizo level difficulty, which isn't the case in this version, so I guess hooray? Some of the sprites don't fare so well from time to time. Oh man, poor Winky. No wonder he didn't show up at Donkey Kong Country 2. You know what they say, you should avoid the frogs with the more vibrant colors.
But by far, the worst glitch is this reoccurring one in Minecart Carnage. For all the praise I give this level, it sure has a problem with freezing up the game.
Seriously, it's like flipping a coin. Will I be able to beat this, or will I have to reset my Nintendo? God, I hate everything! Ugh. Despite the potential, Kremling's Revenge suffers from amateur and unfair level design. They forget the key rule of video games is that they should be fun, not just difficult for the sake of being difficult. I admire the work put into this hack because there are so few full Donkey Kong Country hacks, but I have to be honest with my experience and it really was disappointing. So in the end, I have to give Donkey Kong Country Kremling's Revenge 2 out of 5 golden bananas. That's a game for hardcore Donkey Kong fans. Thanks so much for watching the Repro Review Show. We'll see you next time.